Have you seen the show Wheeler Dealers, where they buy an old car, spend a bit of money on it, fix it up and sell it on for a profit? Well, I was wondering if you could do the same thing with an old stereo system. So that's exactly what we're going to do in today's video. Buy an old stereo, spend some money on it, fix it up and sell it on for a profit. So what did I buy? Well, I brought this. It's a Bose Lifestyle AV28. Their flagship home entertainment system from the mid-2000s. How much did it cost? Well, it cost 156 New Zealand dollars, and that's fairly cheap, and it's cheap for a reason. It only came with 3 of the 5 dual cube speakers that it's supposed to come with. The auction listing said that this has a jammed CD mechanism, and who knows what else is wrong with it. It's a bit of a gamble buying something like this. So I think the best thing to do is to start by seeing what's working and what's not, and then get on with repairing it. Turning it on, it lights up, and it seems to be able to go through the FM stations. But look what happens when I start the CD drive. So the disk drive is spinning up really high, and as you can hear, it's kind of going nuts. That's without telling it to do anything. And if I click open and close, it doesn't seem to do much. Also, there's no sound coming out of a subwoofer. So let's get into it. So we'll start by taking the subwoofer apart. Undo these screws, the back cover comes off, and then undo the screws on the module here. Once you've done this, it will come off. There's just a few more screws on the back of the subwoofer module. Okay, so pry the cover off and the internals are revealed. It's circuit boards galore. You can quite easily undo them. They're very modular. And once you have pulled them all out, you have to take out this metal thing here, which I think holds down the capacitors or the amplifiers for the channels. So take that out, giving it a quick visual inspection to see if there's anything damaged or if there's any dry solder joints. A few years ago, I managed to fix an old Bose subwoofer just by reflowing the solder on it, and it started to work miraculously. So I'm going to do that right now. I'm going to reflow all the solder in the hope that this might bring it to life. Okay, so soldering done, it's time to put back in the circuit boards, do up the screws, and then replace the main board. Once you've done that, do the reverse, put all the screws back in, make sure they're nice and tight so nothing rattles around, and then hook it back up to the lifestyle system. And here is the moment of truth. Is it going to work? Cool, so it should be turned on. So as you can hear, we have some sound coming out of the subwoofer. Let's get this back together. Let's get rid of this dust. It's pretty dirty. It obviously has never been cleaned properly before. And it's just a case of reattaching the screws, making sure they're nice and tight, and then once you've done that, all you need to do is replace the back plastic cover. I thought it'd be a good opportunity now to give it a nice clean on the exterior. So I wanted to understand what was wrong with the CD drive. It wouldn't play a CD, so I thought I'd better open up the unit and see what's what. So you take all the screws from the bottom out, and then the metal parts on the side kind of sort of slide up, and then the back panel kind of clips off. It's really interesting that Bose decided to use what looks like a standard drive from a computer in their top of the range one was $7,000 or $8,000 home hi-fi system. gosh, it looks a little bit cheap to me. So the drawer opens and it closes. Let's put a disc in. Okay, putting that disc in, it doesn't seem to be doing much. You have to force it in to do anything. This is not a good start. Putting it over to the CD, it says it's got no disc. Before we look at the CD player, let's make sure that all these circuit boards are in good working order with no dry solder joints. Okay, so you just have to unclip this little clip here. Most of the circuit boards inside here are kind of just clipped down with minimal screws. It's quite modular and it's quite easy to take apart. This was clearly meant to be worked on. So once you've done that, you've just got to lever that out, and then it's time for a quick clean. Okay, so once again, just quickly going over this. It's time to look at the DVD CD drive. It looks like that this might have been a replacement, as it says it was manufactured in June 2015. This is also clipped in, so you lever it out and then you start undoing the screws on the bottom. There's some screws on the side as well, and once these are off, you can pull the metal cover off. Right. There's just a few more screws for this metal plate that make sure that the disc spins properly. Taking this off, we can see the disc that got stuck inside it. I've taken the CD drive apart, I've cleaned the laser, and there's been some improvements, but there's also still a lot of issues. It also seems to cause quite a few issues with the lifestyle system itself. It causes it to turn off and sort of have weird malfunctions. Right now we seem to be in a boot load issue where it just says lifestyle system. Even clicking on and off doesn't seem to do much. So if I unplug it again, plug it back in, maybe if I click now, okay, so the disc spins, get lifestyle system, and then it shuts off. So that's one of the other weird things, is that you turn it on, it spins up, and then it turns off. So that's weird. And then you click and it says CD, now it's dead again. Okay, so now it works. Okay, of course, as the cameras are rolling, it's behaving itself, but before, when I did this, it would just stop and freeze, and then it wouldn't do anything, and it wouldn't matter what button I pushed on the remote control, it wouldn't work properly. So there's something clearly wrong with the disk drive. So I think it's, there you go, it's frozen. So it's frozen, and it doesn't matter what I do with the remote control, if I push anything, the volume still responds, even though, as you can see, the disc is still spinning. So that's quite an issue. I've managed to get hold of 4 disk drives on the assumption that because they have the same connections on the back, that they're going to be able to be connected to the Bose. Unfortunately, I have attached all of these drives up to the Bose Lifestyles and they won't work. So that plan hasn't worked. This is my new plan. This laser assembly here looks similar to this laser assembly here. Similar enough that I think it's probably worth a go to see if one can be transplanted into another. It's a super simple process of undoing one laser and then opening up the other drive, and once you've taken off this metal plate, you can see the laser. Offering up the laser does seem to be very similar in design. Maybe this will work after all. Okay, so I tried it and it didn't work. It didn't work at all. So repair attempt number 3 has been a failure. I brought a brand new laser. Hopefully this will help it work. So once again, it's taking this disk drive apart, undoing lots of little fiddly screws, And then once you've done that, removing this metal piece, taking this little ribbon cable out, trying not to lose a piece of plastic. And once you've done that, you can remove the laser. It's time to now open up the other laser and refit that. So putting it back together is just a matter of reattaching the screws, making sure everything's nice and tight, reattaching your ribbon cable, the drawer, this metal thing here. Okay, hopefully this is a moment of truth. Reading. You know what they say, failure is always an option. This has not solved the issue. I could go and buy a separate drive unit, but those are $90 and I've got a much better idea. Alright, so I stole this out of here. This is a Lifestyle 18. Okay, so you get a disc, you put it in, and then of course if you go close, where's up. None of that turning off and on nonsense that we had before, and it just plays. It also seems to play a DVD just fine. It sometimes skips on the CD, but I'm going to call this a win. It's working, and it's time to move on to cleaning the remote control. With most Bose equipment, it's always good to service the remote. This one is fairly disgusting. There's grime here. I mean, how you get the grime even behind the battery compartment is anyone's guess. But anyway, once you take the screw out, it's just a matter of prizing it apart. It does require a little bit of force, but you can usually get there. And then you just do it on the other side. And it comes apart. Just be careful not to break any of the little plastic tab things. Alright, well, nothing says delicious like that. Let's give this a clean. It's also good to just quietly, nicely pull that out of there. Alright, so we'll leave that and we'll take this over and give it a bit of a wash. All you need is normal dish soap and water, and lots of scrubbing. This is particularly disgusting, so an old toothbrush is a real help. You might also want to have a larger brush and also scouring pad things, just to make sure that you get rid of all the grime and dirt. My favourite part is getting into the buttons. These are absolutely filthy. This is where all the grime is. Oh, it's disgusting. Filthy. Also make sure that you polish the back of them with isopropyl alcohol on the little black contacts and on the circuit board as well, because this will help it work much better. I find that almost every Bose remote needs this done to it. Okay, it's now back together, and that's the result. Much cleaner. I'm going to take the cover off the AV18 and put it on the AV28 because it's nicer. There is quite a lot of interchangeability with these two units. Okay, so it's time to give it a quick clean, and now I'll tell you about the sound quality. I think the early 2000s was a bit of a low point for Bose, as evidenced by this almost $7,000 when new stereo having what looks like a computer CD drive in it. That's just not high quality components, is it? And to be fair, the sound quality is okay. It's far from Bose's best, and I think that's really evidenced by the amount of electronics in the subwoofer module. The earlier subwoofer Acoustimass module from the early 90s was absolutely packed full of electronics. It was a huge circuit board, and thus it sounded much better, much clearer, much crisper. This one, by comparison, sounds a little bit muffled. This is because at this time Bose was spending more time trying to bend the sound with special technology rather than making something that sounded good out of the box. And here it is, the final result. All clean and shiny with no dents, miraculously. A couple of other things that you might notice about these photographs is that there is now 2 extra speakers. Those came from the Bose Lifestyle AV18, and so did the Adapt IQ calibration disc. I thought I'd include that so that the new owner could set this up in their home however they wish. But overall, I think that the results speak for themselves. The next step was listing it on TradeMe. I initially listed it with a asking price of $1,080, and after a few weeks I lowered it to 920 New Zealand dollars and it sold. Now that is a great result. Yes, I admit I cheated a little bit by using parts from an existing Bose product, the AV18, but that product can also be sold at a much reduced price, given that it's only going to be sold with free speakers, and of course the CD DVD drive isn't really functioning. So that's currently for sale, also on TradeMe, for $380. So that's a fairly decent profit overall. I hope that this has inspired you to go out and buy an old stereo system, fix it up and sell it on for a profit. In some upcoming videos, I've got an old Sony hi-fi system from the 1980s. I've just bought a Meridian 506 CD player, and there's a couple of Bang & Olufsen items too. So please tune in for those, and I'll see you again soon. Thank you so much for watching.